So during this short period, we'll go over, we know we need to do a read. So let's do the read. So we're going to define one and we're going to call it read. We're not going to pass anything in. We're going to use this new way of opening up a file. We're going to use the with. Okay. So with open, and then we're going to just say state.txt. That's the name of our file. By default, it's R. So I don't technically have to put anything there, but I could just say read. Okay. And then I want to just say, how are we doing it? We're going to call it as if. It's like a variable. Okay. So then down here, because it's kind of like an if statement, it's going to be tabbed over a little bit. And we're going to create our list. States is equal to f.read. And then right on the end of that, we can do f.split. And that's going to take it, take each one of those hard returns and take it off there. So it's going to take each hard return off. Okay. If we just did read line instead of read, it'll read all of it in. And then down here, it'll actually have like a /n on the each of these Alabama, Arizona down here. It would actually have like it would have that hard return in it. But by splitting it, it takes that hard return out. Okay. And then obviously we just want to return states. You could tell it's not even been used yet. It's here grayed out. So we just want to return states. So send the list back. Okay. So if we come back down here to def, we're going to first create our list. We're going to get our list from the read. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do a printout. And we're going to print out the type of what states is. And then we're going to print out states. And what that will do is this using type tells us what it is. And the printout states will tell us what's inside the actual file and show us that it's the actual list. So let's go ahead and run it. Again, we got our list here. We know it's a list because we just said what type is it. And then we actually got our list in all the items. And this is what it pulled in from. So we know it's not a list stored in the practice or in the states.txt, but we know it's a list coming out because it's in a list form using the square brackets and the commas. Okay. So the first thing we needed to do was go out and grab the stuff from out there. Okay. Now we need to print. Well, I don't think we need to print yet, but we need to ask the person, hey, do you want to add a state? Right. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll get rid of this. We know that works. So we can come down here and we could say get input, and we'll just say, before we do that, let's just do a keep going while loop. Keep going equals y, and then while keep going is equal to y. We're going to do this stuff. Okay, so that's our loop. And the first thing we're going to do is just ask for the state. Hey, what is the state that you want? Right. So input, please enter a state. Boom, just like that. Okay. Then we check it. And remember last time we talked about the if state not in states, right? So if state not in states, and states references up here. So if state is not in states, okay, we want to state states. Got to call the list. We want to append onto that list, and we want to put the state into that list. Okay. And then we want to also tell them, hey, we added it. So print f, and then we'll go something like state has been added to the list. Okay, something like that. And then we will say else print. Let's see. What do we want to tell them? We want to tell them, hey, the state is already a state. So let's just say state is already in the list. Okay, so let's run this and see if this actually works. And then, well, I guess we should finish it with the keep going. Otherwise, it'll just keep looping. So let's do keep going is equal to another input. Do you want to enter another state? Yes or no, something like that. All right, and that will be keep going. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's run it. So far we have, okay, And all this should do, if we think about it, it's going to ask them, hey, do you want to enter a state, right? So or please enter a state. They put a state. If the state's not in the list, it appends it. Okay. Otherwise, it's been added to the list. And we'll do some error checking. But for right now, let's just do the capitalization of the state by ourselves. Okay. So we're going to run it. Please enter a state. Let's say Iowa. Iowa's already in the list. You want to enter another state? Yes. Let's say Oregon. Oregon's been added to the list. No. And then it shouldn't do anything else because we haven't told it to do anything else. And that includes coming over and seeing if Oregon is in the state. It is not in here. So basically, we know it worked. Okay. And we know if we read it again, it's going to read what's in the file. So it's not going to show up. But it checked and was able to say, yeah, it's in the state or not in the state. So what we can do is we can print states again. Okay. And just to see if it actually, when we added Oregon, if it's put into the states. So let's go here, enter state, Oregon. Oregon's been added, no. And then if we look, there's Oregon over here. And we know Oregon is not alphabetical because Oregon should be over here between Texas and that. So I guess what we need to do next is sort it, right? So what you could do is say something like print states dot sort, something like that. And now if we run it, it's going to throw a none, okay? It's going to throw a none. And it doesn't like doing a sort inside a print statement. So enter a state. Let's do Oregon again. And no. And it's going to throw out a none here. Okay. What happens is it doesn't like this states.sort inside this print statement. But if we come out here and go states.sort, like so, and then print states, it will like that much better. Okay. So if I say, please enter a state, Oregon, no, and now it'll actually show that Oregon is sorted correctly. Okay. So we have read the state, we have output the state, but now we want to print the states in some sort of list here that it prints them out in kind of, and not in this list type format, right? So let's go ahead and print out the states. Instead of read the states, let's print it out. So we'll go something like def print. We don't want to use print because it's a keyword, but we can do print out, and we can pass in states, the list, right? And we'll go to that point, right? So here, we don't want to just print, we want to print out. So we want to call our function and we want to pass in states, okay, after the sort. So it goes up into here and it should print it out. And it's actually not printing anything here. It's just calling this function called printout and puts it into and passes in states to it. Okay, just like that. Now up here, we want to actually go through and kind of loop it, go through a loop and output it to the screen. So we could do something like down here, if state not in states, we could do something similar. We could say for state in states, print state. Just really simple, just really simple. Okay. And then let's just run that and see if it works. So, so this is a for loop and it checks and it takes states, which is a list, and it says, hey, take a state in a state. Now, what you'll realize is the singular of states is state. And I love doing that when it's like for loops. So for item in items, for name in names, it makes it so much easier. So on a list, just always add an S. And then when you for it, you just go right through that. When you go through the iteration, you just put a singular there. Okay. And it works really well in this situation because you have state here, you're using state down here, and you know it's a singular state. And up here, obviously, it's inside this function, so it doesn't really matter what you call it. I could call it for X, print X, but it just looks so clean. So we come down here and let's print that. So I mean, let's run that and let's enter a state called Texas. Texas is already in the list. No. And then notice it prints it all out. And Oregon is missing. Why is Oregon missing? Well, Oregon is missing because we never actually wrote back to this file called state. Okay. So that's our last thing that we want to do. We want to actually call a function called write boom, we want to write it, and then we want to print it out. So let's make another one. We're going to make one last function, and we're going to call it write, and we're going to pass into it states. Pretty easy. And obviously we want to create that file thing, right? So we'll go file1 is equal to open state.txt. Always throws that up there, comma, and we want to write this. Why do we want to write it, not append it? We want to write it because we want to replace this list with all the stuff that was. So we want to take that whole list and just shove it into that. We don't want to append it. We want to just put it in and replace everything that's in there. So write really works in this situation. So we're going to just simply do another for loop, just like we did before. We're going to say something like for state in states, just like that. And we're going to say file1 dot write. So write out to that file and just put in state, just like that. And then we'll do it again. File1 dot write. And then we'll put in a something like this, just so it'll add an extra line at the end of each one. And then obviously we want to close our file, file1 dot close. All right. So now let's see if Oregon will be permanent. So we right click, we say run, come down here, please enter a state, Oregon, and no, we do not. We come down here, Oregon, and it's been listed and it's in the right order. If we run it again, whoops, that was a debug. Let's just stop and do it again. So we right click, run, enter another state, Oregon. It has been added to the list. That's awesome. So do you want to enter another state? No. And there's Oregon. Let's come over here and look. Oregon is not in this state list. What did we do wrong? Let us take a look. Who can help me out? How embarrassing. I already know what we did wrong, but who can help me out? All right. I think it's because we're being recorded. You guys don't want to help, but I appreciate the extra help. So what I'm going to do is come down here and I'm actually going to call it. So I forgot to call it. So write state. So I'm going to send in states. I'm going to call my function called write. And should make things go, should make things actually work. The program's only going to do what you tell the program to do, right? So I'm going to right click, I'm going to run this, and I'm going to enter in Oregon. I don't know why I got Oregon on my mind, but it's easy to spell. Yes, please enter another state. Oregon, it's already in the list. No. And if I come over and look at state, Oregon is actually stored in that document.